Hello, you wonderful language learner, you. Today, I want to talk to you about the Refold app, what it is and why you should use it, then also how you should use it, and give you a bit of a tutorial on how to make the most of it. So before I make this awkward, which I already have, let's just jump right into it. A lot of language learners get very frustrated about their progress in the language because that is the main thing that they're basing their self-worth on, or their worth in language learning. But you don't control your abilities in a language. They are the result of effort that you put in. Effort you do control. You can control how much effort you put into your learning, and you potentially, mostly, can control how much time you put in as well. And so it's much better to base your progress on that because that's something you have direct control over. When you let something that you don't control affect your self-worth, image, whatever it is, it's a recipe for disaster. Plus, something that you measure and control, you can improve. And so a combination of all those ideas are why we're so focused on building a really good effort and time tracker specifically for language learning. The app is still currently in beta. You can't even find it directly on the App Store. You have to click the link in the description to get it. But as we're building it, we're going to add a lot more so that it also tracks your progress and lets you know what you should do and becomes sort of a personal trainer for language learning. But for now, we're just going to be talking about the features that do already exist. The other thing that it's already great for is habit development. And so we're going to talk about that too, how you can use it to develop habits, which will help you basically ensure your success. A lot of people are very hesitant to track their time. It can be a bit scary, sound kind of boring. There's a lot of different reasons that you might not really want to initially. However, in our experience, basically everybody gets something out of it, even if they only track for a week or two. When we take on individual coaching clients, we almost always force them to track their time because it allows us to see how they're spending their time and give them concrete recommendations. As humans, we're not very good at remembering the past or specific actions or how we felt a couple weeks ago because that's just not how our brains work, and that's totally fine. But being able to look back and see what you did and understand how much time and effort you put in can reveal a lot of things about your own learning or even yourself. But we do realize that there is a learning curve and it is a bit difficult to get into. And so the purpose of making an app and this video are to help you ease into it and not feel overwhelmed as you're starting to track your time and effort. So without further yappity yap, let's talk about the app specifically and how to get into it. So once you download the app, which you can do with the link in the description, you're going to see something a bit like this, which is a login screen. And you're going to have to log in. You do not have an account if you haven't made one yet, even if you have a Refold account. I know it's a bit annoying, but they are not linked. So if you have a Refold account on the website, you're going to have to make a new account. You can, if you want, use the same email address and password to keep things the same in your mind, but you have to go through the process again. Great, so let's hit sign up, and it's going to make us an account and log us in. And now we get to choose a username. So I'm going to be, this is not Ben, but you should probably choose one that is a real username. Oh no, we can't do spaces. And then this is not Ben. Then we're going to have to choose the language that we're learning. We've got some common languages. So let's say that we're learning, just for the fun of things, we're learning Korean. I said the wrong one. Now, we're presented with this create a habit screen. Habits are the basis of the app. They're the things that you're trying to do in your language learning. So you can first off choose a habits plan, which we actually have based on where you are on the roadmap. And so you can just choose a preset set of habits if you want, if you're a new learner or you're working on your reading comprehension, you're listening, or you can choose a basic habit, which is another great simple way to set habits up. So for example, let's set up a learn every day habit, right? That's all you're trying to do is learn the language for a certain amount of time. And I think 30 minutes a day is a great thing, and we'll set the stretch goal as 45 minutes. Perfect. So then I'm just going to finish here. And we see it's connected to Korean. So I hit finish here, and now it's going to give us a bit of a rundown of what we just did. So let's talk about this. So as it says, there are three concepts to the Refold tracker: habits, activities, and actions. The habit is what we just made, right? The goal is to do something for a certain amount of time every single day. In this case, it's to learn every day. Activities are the things that you can do to language learn, right? So for example, we talk about something like intensive reading, or a conversation is an activity, things that you do in your language learning. And then actions are the things that you do as a language learner during your day. So whenever you read for 25 minutes, that is an action. The kind of reading you did, or just reading, is the activity, and it might contribute to a habit. And so we see here, it sort of explains that, right? And so we're going to hit next. And then you can also allow notifications. They are currently a little bit dumb. Hopefully, as you're watching this, they are a little bit smarter, but it'll just send you notifications at certain times. Just allow, and then we get another thing, congratulations, and we'll see how habits will look. So when we have a regular habit, it'll just look like this. It's not done yet. And then we can also see our target and how far along we are there. And we can also see our habit health. This is a really important thing. Your habit health is basically a percentage of how much of the past, I think it's 6 weeks, you've done your habit. The goal is to have a high habit health. That means that you do the thing often. In this case, there's a 95% habit health, which means that it's very healthy. You're doing that thing most of the days, 95% of the days. This is better than a streak, because the problem with a streak is that if you lose one day, you lose an entire streak of potentially weeks or years for some people. But the reality is that if you learn 9 days in a row and then miss one day, that can be good if you get back onto it the next day, right? So you have 9 days on, 1 day off, and then 9 days on again. But that would only look like a 9-day streak, but it would look like a 90% habit health. Habit health is way more important for actually getting to your progress. A streak is just a number of, it's a current streak, right? It's not actually how good you've been doing over time. If you get sick or something, you shouldn't have to break a streak. You should just be able to get right back into learning. And so that's why we use habit health. Can keep it once out. I'll be right back. And now this next screen reminds you that you should do something every single day. No matter what, every single day you should try to do just a little thing, something in your target language to keep yourself connected to it. Anything is a million times better than nothing. And then finally, we'll talk about Quick Start, but I'll show you that as we get everything set up. So let's get started. Now we see here's our habit that we just set up, learn every day. Let's set up another habit to make it a little bit more interesting. Let's do another basic habit, and I want to practice my reading. But I don't want to do 30 minutes. I want to do 10 minutes of reading per day, minimum. Oops, I actually stopped that too quickly. So I'm going to go back in here. I just clicked on the habit. Then I'm going to click this little pencil in the top right. I'm in the wrong spot. We'll talk about this in a second. What I want to go is to details and change this one so I can add a daily stretch, because I wanted to do that to make my daily stretch of 20 minutes. And then we hit save, and there we go. So now is a great time to talk about these activities that we just saw. Activities are anything that you can do in your language learning that contributes to that habit. So by default, this reading one has a whole list of activities that would contribute to the habit. So you can do interactive reading with audio, free flow reading with audio, sentence mining, interactive reading, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of different reading things that you can do because there's lots of different kinds of reading. And so this habit will look at basically any kind of reading and count it as part of it. So we can even see that if I go into the tracker, this is where you track your actions. And I'm going to hit the stopwatch one, which just starts counting up of how long you've been doing something. But I'll pause it for now so we can actually give it a name. So let's say that you're reading the newspaper. And so then you look in here and you can go to the reading and filter it for different kinds of reading. And you can find what thing you're actually doing. And this is the most important part. You want to track the kind of activity you're doing, because this will allow you to know if you're spending your time in a good way. Because not all language learning activities are created equal. And this is an important part of the app. We're trying to help people become better language learners by understanding how they're spending their time. A common thing that we came across in coaching is that people would be spending a lot of time doing their language learning, but that time was not very quality. And so other coaching clients who were doing less time but better quality learning would make progress faster. And so that's what we're trying to inspire here. So we said that we're reading the newspaper, and let's say that we're looking up words. So that would be interactive reading. Great, then we have reading the newspaper, interactive reading. Now I can hit play, and we'll start to count up the time as you do it. You wait, you can pause it if you get interrupted for a minute, you can hit play again, and then as soon as you're done, you can hit save. Now, in this case, it's only 11 seconds, so let's add a little bit more time just to show that it was not, we can see it easier. So you can actually just press the buttons here to change things. If you missed a couple minutes or whatever, and you can make edits. It can't end in the future, which is something we're probably going to fix. But for example, I have to send the start time back a little bit, but hopefully you won't have to do that in the future. And I hit save, and now we can see that we read the newspaper for 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Now, if I go back into the home, we can see that there's a little bit of progress on this reading thing, right? It's a little bit, it's about a third towards the goal, and the goal is 10 minutes, so that makes sense. And we can see how we have our recent action of reading the newspaper, and it's starting to contribute to these habits. But if I go back here and I do a different action, so for example, a listening activity, or let's do a speaking activity. Let's say speaking with partner. So I'm maybe doing an italki lesson, and I hit go, and there it's counting up, yada, 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 and I hit save. I'm going to edit it to be a little bit longer. Let's pretend it was a 30-minute session. And I hit save. And then we go back to here. We see that it did not contribute to reading because it's not a reading activity, but it did contribute to the learn every day. So that's how habits and actions interact. What I recommend doing first is setting up some basic habits that you want to do. So in this case, we have some reading, we have some learning every day, and then let's set up another one, which is some vocab study. I want to do, I actually want to just do any vocab study. So I'm going to set it just to 1 minute. Right, the goal here is not actually to do a lot of vocab study, it's to do some vocab study every single day. So I'm setting a very low habit. And then I could go in here, and again, you could just mark Anki, and then select the activity as vocab study. And then it goes up. Let's add another minute here. And there we go. Now we see an actual completed habit down here at the bottom. And this is when a habit is fully done. It goes all the way down here. Your goal is to get all of your habits down there, or at least complete the daily minimum, right? We see that the daily minimum has been completed for the learning every day one because that little target is hit, but that extra stretch goal has not been gotten to yet. So that's considered to be done if you want, but you can also push yourself to go a little bit further. I actually haven't even talked about the timer yet. So when you press the timer, it'll start an actual timer to count down. I'm going to pause it because I don't want, the number going down makes me nervous when I'm not doing anything. And if you don't want to start at 30 minutes, you hit the config down here in the bottom left, and you can change your default starting time, either using the dots or the slider, whatever you want. Let's set it to be 22 minutes, sure. And you can actually also add stuff in here, but I'm just going to click start there, which immediately starts from 22. You can put in whatever you're doing. What else could we be doing? Podcast listening. And then we would do free flow listening. There we go. And then this would count down, and then it's going to bing, bing, bing as soon as it's done. As I'm recording this video, there is a problem with this, that if you turn off your screen, it will not bzz at you. This is a very complex problem that we've literally spent October, November, December, January, February, March. We spent 6 months trying to solve this. It is a very difficult thing for some reason. We've worked with a lot of different contractors, and it's a whole nightmare. But it will work in the future. That is a promise that we can make. We just got to figure out how first. When you're done, it'll go off, or you can just hit save to stop where you were. So as we saw, we only got 58 seconds in. And you can actually see the hourglass there because that marks the kind of tracking that you did for that activity. The last option is just to put in what you did. So manual entry is what it's called. So you can put in whatever you did here, choose whatever you did there. Let's say it was shadowing, and then say I did it for 5 minutes. And then you hit save, and it will just put it down there. And you can also see that it is in as a manual entry. If you don't have a time that you did it, which I didn't configure, it'll just go to the bottom of the list because it doesn't know when you did it necessarily. Those are all the different ways to put in time. But let's talk a little bit more about this whole activity selection thing, which you're going to be doing fairly often. The idea is that you don't have to think about it too much. It should be fairly clear. but we are still improving the user experience of selecting your activities. So if you have feedback, feel free to let us know, which, by the way, I'll show you. Feedback can be added with this little button here at the top. Click on that, give us your feedback, and then hit submit. We do use your feedback to make changes to the app, so it's vitally important. Anyways, when you're doing an activity, what you can do is think about basically what you're doing. Are you reading, listening, watching, speaking, that sort of thing, and click that button, and then try to find what you were doing. You can also do searching, and then if you ever have a question about it, like you don't know exactly what, for example, free flow reading with audio means. And then we have there reading and listening simultaneously without doing lookups or using tools. I think that's pretty clear, right? That's when you're both reading and listening without looking up additional words, you're just letting it go by. So that's a lot of stuff, right? Reading with audio. So reading along with an audiobook, with a transcript, or a lot of different things can be free flow reading with audio. If you ever don't know or can't figure it out, don't spend too much time. You can always just search for something that doesn't come up, then click I can't find my activity, and it puts it in as other, which is a great sort of catch-all just in case you don't want to waste time figuring it out and you just want to track what you did. If you are curious though, you can always ask us and be like, hey, what was this? I couldn't figure it out, and we'll be happy to let you know. Now, there are a lot of other cool features, but that is the base of the app. But I want to talk about some things that can make your life easier as you're using it. So one of the things that I use literally every single day is the quick start feature. So whenever you see a little play button like this on the right-hand side, next to an action, you can click that play button to immediately start a new version of that habit. So in the case of Anki, every single day I just scroll back to yesterday and I press the quick start button on that thing so that it will start right away. And then it counts up, and then I hit save, and then I'm done. And so that makes it really easy to do things that you already done. You don't have to do the manual process of going in here and inputting Anki, which I spelled wrong, bajo, how did they get that? Anki, and then select, like you don't have to do that every single time. You can just use the quick start feature. You can also quick start up here on a habit, which will take you to the place where you can choose exactly what you're doing. So for example, I just clicked on the quick start of reading, which took me to all the different reading activities. So let's say I'm doing sentence mining while reading, press the play, and it goes here. I can say what I was doing it with. So again, newspaper, why not? And then you can start the stopwatch right from here with start. And then it starts going up exactly as you would expect. The other two tabs that are pretty fun are the reports tab, where you can look at things about your language learning, see how your overtime habit health, how much time you've spent learning overall, your next milestone, time on average over per day, how you spend your time, and a bunch of different cool things. You can also, by the way, filter by languages. So currently it's on all languages, but if I can set it to be just Korean or whatever it is. And this applies to the entire app. So if you're learning more than one language, you're definitely going to want to be aware of what language you have selected at each time, because if you add another one, it'll get confused and yada yada. But most people aren't learning two languages, so you probably should be fine. And the last tab is this social tab, where you can see a big list of everybody else that's immersing, what they've been doing, the total stats, how much time we've tracked together, which at time of recording you can see is 77,800 or so. With over 160,000 individual actions and almost 3,000 users, and you're going to be one of them. And then you can also see the rankings for the day. You can see where you are, what number you're in. So I'm currently in 415th place. The number got even smushed over. And you can see who's been doing the most for the week. This is currently just as a week. Some people do import their time, by the way. So like I know, for example, that this person just imported all of their past time, which is why they're showing as 88 hours this week. They have not done. It is Wednesday, but they imported a bunch of time from the past that they didn't know when it was, and so it just happens to look like this. We're going to add things that make the leaderboard a little bit more real in that sense, but this is a good time to talk about an import. If you have past time that you tracked in another app, you can import it. You have to play with the data a little bit, but I recorded an entire in-depth tutorial that you can use to import your data. The link for that is in the description below. I promise it is not as scary as it looks. The video is an hour long, but you can do it in a lot less time than that, because in the video I actually give 3 examples of doing it. So it's a smaller feat than it seems. It's really not that bad, but it's also not needed. If you don't want to import your time, you absolutely do not have to. And the last little fun feature is that you can follow people. If you want to have your own feed of people's actions and things, you can find somebody either with the search button or by just clicking on somebody's name and then clicking the follow button right under it. So I'm now following Vargas. You can see their action feed. Excuse me, sir. And now that person's going to show up in my following feed. So it's one person, so it's me versus them. But you can follow your friends, or you can make little groups, or you can follow people that you admire as language learners. Whatever it is, you can use it however you want. The last thing I want to mention before ending this video, because I don't want it to get that long, is that clicking on your name up here is where you can change your settings. If you ever want to change your username, you can change it here, or rather, you can change your display name. Your username is already set, but your display name, what other people see, you can change. This is also where you find other settings and various things in the app. Well, I think that's more than enough for this video. I hope that it helps you to set up your app and start to use it in a way that works for you. We're really excited to see people using it for their language learning and making good progress while using the app, as well as giving us feedback on how we can make the app even better. If you have any questions about the app, I recommend that you go into our Discord server and don't leave them in the comments here, because in the Discord server, you can actually have access to the various developers of the app and me a lot more quickly than here on YouTube. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video. So until then, happy immersing.
I'm here to drop some knowledge, listen up with your ears. I got a language learning method, gonna make it crystal clear. It's called Refold, the game changer, gonna blow your mind. Immerse yourself in media, fluency you will find. Refold.
You gonna be part of this? Okay. Can't keep it. What are you doing? Why are you scratching my butt? Dude. You want to get down? Oh, you want to get down. That's what you wanted. Jeez. You have a thing to get down on.